He walked out of prison after 10 long years, free for the first time in a decade. His wife waited, loyal, loving, and completely unaware. She thought their nightmare was over. But just weeks later, her body was found in their bedroom. What happened between reunion and murder would leave investigators horrified, and a family forever changed. Subscribe for more true crime stories and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Now let's dive in. Trisha Barnes was the kind of woman people called a rock. Steady, loyal, quietly strong. She grew up in a small town outside Baton Rouge, raised by her grandmother after her mother left when she was 6. Life hadn't been easy, but Trisha never complained. By her mid-20s, she was working 2 jobs, waitressing by day, cleaning offices by night. That's when she met Leon. He was charming, unpredictable, a little dangerous, and she fell fast. Even after his arrest in 2013 for a string of armed robberies, Trisha stayed. 10 years, she waited. Sent letters, took calls, sent money. Everyone told her to move on, but she believed in second chances. She rented a small house in West Feliciana Parish, just big enough for them to start over. She was excited, counting down the days until Leon's release. She told her friends, "I've held it down this long. Now it's our turn to live." No one could have guessed she was planning a homecoming, but he was bringing home a secret that would kill her. Leon Barnes was never built for rules. As a teenager, he ran with older crews, stealing cars and breaking into homes around East Baton Rouge. By 19, he already had 2 convictions. But it was the 2013 robberies that finally landed him in prison, a 10-year sentence at Angola. Inside, Leon kept to himself. He wasn't a gang affiliate. He wasn't violent. But what he was reckless. Inmates say he spent those years chasing moments, drugs, favors, unprotected encounters behind shadows and closed doors. He never told Trisha about any of it. To her, he was reading books, working out, trying to be a better man. And maybe part of him wanted to be. But time changes people. And prison changed Leon. He was released in April. No job lined up, no plan. Just Trisha, waiting at the gate, arms wide open. For a while, things looked hopeful. They laughed, cooked together, took long walks, but something was off. He was irritable, secretive, losing weight fast. When Trisha asked, he told her it was stress, said he just needed time. She believed him. But within a month, that house of hope turned into something darker, far more permanent. July 3rd, just after 6 a.m. A neighbor noticed the back door of the Barnes home slightly open. Odd, she thought. Trisha was usually cautious. After 2 unanswered texts and a gut feeling that wouldn't go away, the neighbor walked over. Inside, silence. No TV. No footsteps. No morning coffee sounds. She called out. No answer. She stepped in, and within seconds, turned right back around and dialed 911. When deputies arrived, they found Trisha lying on the bedroom floor. No signs of a break-in, no sign of struggle, but her face was pale, eyes open. Her body was cold. And Leon? Gone. There was no weapon, no blood, just Trisha, fully clothed, lying on her side as if she had collapsed mid-step. The bedroom showed signs of a rushed exit. A suitcase partially packed, dresser drawers open, a cell phone smashed near the nightstand. On the bathroom counter, officers noticed something strange, an empty pill bottle, not prescribed to Trisha. A closer look revealed the name, Leon Barnes. The medication, antiretrovirals. Detectives didn't know what to make of it, yet. But whatever happened in that room, it wasn't sudden. It was personal, and it had been building quietly for weeks. At first, Trisha's death didn't scream homicide. There were no marks, no signs of forced trauma, no witnesses. But something wasn't right. The smashed phone, the missing husband, and that pill bottle, antiretrovirals, usually used to treat one thing. An autopsy was ordered. While waiting on toxicology results, detectives started piecing together the days leading up to her death. Trisha hadn't been to work in 3 days. She hadn't returned any calls, but she had spoken to her friend Sasha the week before. That call changed everything. Trisha had confessed she wasn't feeling well. Headaches, fever, night sweats. She was scared. Thought it might be the flu. But then she said something else. Something Sasha couldn't forget. Leon's acting strange. He keeps taking pills he won't talk about. He won't touch me anymore. And I found a paper in the trash. Something about viral load. 2 days later, Trisha was dead. Then the autopsy came back. No drugs. No poison. But in her blood, doctors found advanced stage HIV infection. It hadn't come from years ago. This was recent, aggressive, and untreated. According to medical examiners, Trisha had contracted it within the past 30 to 60 days. She never stood a chance. Detectives now had a terrifying question. Did Leon know he was infected and sleep with his wife anyway? By the time the autopsy report confirmed the presence of HIV, Leon Barnes had vanished. His last known sighting was 2 days before Trisha's body was found, seen on a neighbor's porch, smoking a cigarette and pacing back and forth. He left behind his clothes, his ID, even his shoes. But what he didn't leave behind was his prescription bottle, the only proof of what he had been living with and hiding. Detectives issued a statewide alert. They checked bus stations, hospitals, shelters, any place an ex-con with no money might turn to. But Leon knew how to disappear. He'd been surviving since he was a teenager, and now survival meant running. Then a tip came in. A clerk at a motel 80 miles south near Lafayette recognized Leon from a news segment. She said he checked in under the name Derek West, using cash. Quiet. Alone. Stayed one night. Checked out early. Left behind nothing but a used toothbrush and an empty water bottle. Fingerprint analysis confirmed it. He'd been there. It was now a statewide manhunt. Not for a man who'd simply run, but for a man who may have knowingly infected his wife and let her die slowly without a word. Police feared it wouldn't end with Trisha. 6 days after the statewide alert went out, U.S. Marshals picked up a signal, a tip from a bus driver headed west. A passenger matching Leon's description had crossed into Texas. Quiet, no luggage, wearing oversized clothes that didn't quite fit. The trail led them to Houston. It was a rundown complex on the city's north side. A friend of a friend had offered Leon a couch and no questions. But questions came anyway. Loud knocks just before dawn. Marshals stormed in and found Leon asleep on the floor. No resistance, no story. Just one sentence. She wasn't supposed to die. They cuffed him on the spot. Back in Louisiana, prosecutors were waiting. But the charge wasn't simple. There was no weapon, no violent struggle, no physical assault. But they had something just as strong: his medication records, her medical results, and his silence. Leon Barnes was charged with second-degree murder on grounds of knowingly infecting his wife with a terminal illness without informing her. A death he caused not with his hands, but with what he chose to hide. The courtroom was packed. Local reporters filled the back row. Trisha's family sat in silence, her younger sister clutching a framed photo. Leon Barnes entered in shackles, head down, wearing a gray suit 2 sizes too big. The prosecution opened strong. They painted a picture of a man who knew he was infected, who took medication daily, who never told his wife, and who watched her die, slowly, quietly, from something he had the power to prevent. They called medical experts, prison doctors, and the state pharmacist who confirmed Leon had been receiving antiretroviral treatments for nearly 5 years. The most damning piece? A signed consent form from 2020, where Leon acknowledged his diagnosis, understood transmission risks, and agreed to disclose it to partners. But he never told Trisha. Her medical records showed she'd been HIV negative just 10 months before her death. There was no one else. No affairs. No unknown contacts. Just Leon. The defense tried to argue reasonable doubt. They said there was no direct evidence that he infected her, that Trisha could have contracted it another way. But every piece of their theory crumbled under cross-examination. Then came the voicemail. 1 week before her death, Trisha had called her friend Sasha. In the message, her voice was weak, but clear. "He lied to me. I found his meds. He got out and gave me something I can't get rid of. I'm scared, Sasha. I think I'm dying." That recording played in the silent courtroom for 30 seconds. And when it ended, there wasn't a dry eye on the jury bench. Leon showed no emotion. After 6 days of testimony, the jury was sent to deliberate. It took them less than 3 hours. When they returned, the courtroom held its breath. The judge asked Leon Barnes to rise. The foreperson stood and read the verdict. Guilty of second-degree murder. No outbursts, no shouts, just silence. Heavy. Final. Leon didn't flinch. No apology, no explanation. He simply nodded once, as if he'd been expecting it all along. The judge sentenced him to life in prison, without the possibility of parole. Trisha's sister gave a short statement outside the courthouse. He didn't shoot her, he didn't stab her. But what he did was worse. He watched her fade. He watched her beg for answers. And he gave her none. Across the state, the case sent shockwaves. Not just for its outcome, but for what it revealed. That harm doesn't always come with bruises. That love, when paired with deception, can kill just as surely as any weapon. And that silence can be a sentence in itself. In the months after the verdict, Trisha's family tried to move forward. Her sister took in Trisha's dog, packed up the small house in West Feliciana, and donated most of her clothes. But some things stayed untouched. Her journal, the photo on her nightstand, and the sticky note she kept on the fridge that read, "Better days are coming." The story made national headlines. Activists pointed to the case as a reminder of the importance of medical disclosure. Lawmakers began reviewing public health statutes across several states. In Louisiana, a new bill was introduced, one that would make intentional transmission a more clearly defined criminal offense. But for those who knew Trisha, justice felt hollow. She had waited a decade, had kept faith, held hope, and built a future around a man she thought was changing. But what she got wasn't redemption, it was betrayal. Leon Barnes was transferred to Angola, the same prison he'd been released from just a year earlier. In a strange twist, he now walks the same yard, eats the same food, stares at the same walls. Only this time, for life. And Trisha? She rests in a quiet cemetery just 4 miles from the home she tried to fill with love again. A small marble stone reads her name, her birth and death dates, and the words she used to say when things got hard. Love should never cost your life. Trisha Barnes believed in second chances. She waited 10 years for the man she loved, held him down through prison walls, built a life for them, and never once stopped believing he'd come home better. But he came home with a secret, and it killed her. This case wasn't about violence in the traditional sense. No screaming, no blood, no fingerprints on a weapon. It was slower, quieter. A betrayal carried in silence and sealed with a lie. Leon didn't just take Trisha's life. He took her trust, her health, her future, all while looking her in the eye and pretending he loved her. As you sit with this story, ask yourself, would you have known something was wrong? Could you forgive someone who smiled while hiding something so deadly? Tell us in the comments. Do you think justice was truly served? And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button for more true crime stories just like this one. Real cases, real consequences. Drop a comment with where you're watching from. Until next time, stay safe and stay sharp.